Welcome to David Dudley Outdoors, and yes, today we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to talk about the actual rut, the deer rut, what goes on in the deer rut, and I'm going to prove to you that a lot of theories that you've always heard as a kid, you've heard the older people say it, and just hunters that have been around for a while, they tell you these theories that really don't make any sense, and I'm going to break it down to you. I'm going to dispel the myth, okay? The myth of why big bucks get big and what's actually going on during the whitetail deer rut, okay? What is going on? I'm going to use some human comparisons to the actual deer just to break down logic to you and so you can understand what's going on. So I've been an outdoorsman my whole life. I've been fishing professionally for 25 years, and when I am not fishing, I spend 30 to 40 hours a week in the woods hunting. So me and nature are like two peas in a pod. That's my office. I know everything that's kind of going around. I got a good feel for what's happening, not only through fishing, but in the hunting world, okay? So let's talk about this. What is the rut? The rut is when naturally God's creation starts to create more and more and more deer for us to put on the ground for God's grocery store so we can eat these wonderful critters. Now, what happens during the rut? Why do big bucks get big? Why do they thrive? And you hear these sayings, they're just so smart. That's why they're so big. I'll go with that a little bit. But I want to also tell you that there's some other things going on that you probably have never given any thought to. And most of these statements, I'm going to dispel that. I'm going to call it false, okay? So one of the things is that you've always heard your whole life is that, they're big because they don't move. They know when to move and they're just so slick. They're hard to jump. They're hard to see. They're hard to find. Well, let me put a little bit of logic in behind that, okay? A 5-year-old deer, a 6, 7, and deer can get up to 9 years old. I mean, that's on the threshold of you're an old deer. You're on the decline, right? But what actual age is a 5-year-old deer in human activity? I'm going to say a 5-year-old deer is probably in the 60s or 70-year-old in human years, okay? Now, you can comment below and take a guess, but what I'm trying to tell you is just simple logic. Now, we got teenagers that are out, they're very athletic. They can just bounce around. They can do whatever they want because they know that coyote ain't gonna get them. They're just invincible. They're just young, idiotic, acting in the woods. Typically, that's what it is. Those teenagers are walking through broad, open woods. They know if they have to, they can run, they can leap, they can jump fences, they can jump logs, they can do whatever they want. Now, you kind of see where I'm going. Now, I want to talk about the bucks, okay? The actual bucks that you always typically see chasing does. Now, listen to me. When I talk logic, I talk majority, not minority. And what I want to tell you is this, is that typically a teenage deer, a 1-year-old deer is probably like 1 to 12, 13 years old, okay? That's what he is, a 1-year-old. In human age, he's like 12 to 13 years old. Now, you get a 2-year-old buck, he's like a little 4-pointer, a 6-pointer. Let's just say he's 14 to 22, right? 14 to 22 years old. That teenage buck, that 2-year-old buck, he is primed. Like he is ready to get it on. Like, let's get it on. Every muscle in his body is working, including the muscle down yonder. That muscle is working also. Very, very healthy working. And he is going to be chasing those doe. When he gets that smell of that doe, he's going to be all over the place. He's ready. He's chasing her and chasing her. Majority of the time, you see bucks chasing does. They're going to be that 2-year-old, 3 and 4-year-old. Now, there's some healthy 4-year-olds. Don't get me wrong. There is some stud 4-year-olds. But when you start getting into the 4-year-olds, guys, 4-year-old deer is a pretty old deer, okay? That's like in your 50s of human age. And 50-year-old men can still function and can still have their muscles working, but they don't work as good as a, let's say, a teenage buck. So in reality, he is not as pumped to go chasing a deer all over the place and, you know, and he's not as primed and ready as the young ones. They just want to find every doe that there is. At 4-year-old, he's like, man, I don't, you know, he is not as primed and ready, so he's not running around. But myth says that he's smart. Myth says that he is a smarter buck. Well, I'm telling you that 4-year-old or 5-year-old buck, he is pretty much way past his prime, and it don't interest him no more. Why do you see the majority of deer chasing does? Because they're young, they're ready, they're primed and ready. So here's another thing I want to explain to you. Most of the time you find big bucks, they're like, oh, they just go in these real big thick things, thick thickets and lay down, which is true, okay? A big giant buck is not going to lay in an open woods by a lay down tree. He's just, maybe when the leaves are on the tree, he might be slip up and just relaxing out in the middle of the open woods. You might catch him early season, but come late season, you're not going to catch him out in the open woods. Majority of the time, you're not going to catch that big buck. He's going to be in the thickest stuff he can find. Now, why is that? Why is that, you ask? I'm going to explain to you why. Because a 5, 6, 7-year-old deer, dude, he's a 60, 70, 80-year-old man. How many of y'all see 80-year-old men jumping over lay-down trees, jumping over fences, crossing creeks, and running? No. That big buck knows he don't have the athletic ability as that he did years ago. We hear it all the time. I can't play basketball like I used to, or I can't play ball like I used to. Why? I used to be able to run 10 miles. I can't run it. My arthritis has got... That big buck is the same way. That young buck that's laying in the woods, he knows he can lay out in the woods. He's like, if I even see a coyote, he ain't gonna catch me. You ain't gonna catch me. You ain't smart enough to catch me. But what I'm telling you is this. Most of the time when a buck gets big and he gets fat, what happens to humans when we sit around? We start getting arthritis. We don't run 10 miles like we used to. We don't do the stuff that we used to. Even though they look big and healthy, the reason they're fat, the reason they're big is because they're lazy. They got arthritis. They can't get around. Now, why do they go to thicket? Because in the thicket, they feel they have protection around them. Okay? They feel secure, more secure in a thicket. A young teenager don't want to sit in a shaded over real big thicket his whole life. He's fruit. He wants to be out, see things, do whatever. That big buck is like, I've seen it. I've done it. He probably as well even sees a doe come by him that smells wonderful. And he's like, back in the day, I used to chase that doe. But my muscle, It don't work no more, so you just go on, girl. One of them little bucks is gonna he'll be chasing you. I can't chase you no more because I ain't got a blue pill. I ain't got a blue pill to prime me up. That's basically what's going on. That's basically what's happening. Why do big bucks grow big? What is actually happening during the rut? Well, if you actually think how humans are, and you actually think why we are the way we are as we age, it's the same thing with deer. So I don't lend as much credit as these old wise tales of why bucks get big and why they're where they're at and all this kind of myth and stuff. Basically, as the older he gets, the less he moves. The older he gets, the less he chases the young does. He knows he doesn't have a blue pill to prime him up. He's like, ain't no use chasing her because I can't do nothing anyways, right? I hope you guys have learned something. Guys, I hope you guys understand that when you are dealing with the outdoors, you got to really think about what is actually happening in the outdoors. And a lot of it is just comparing things that we know as humans and applying it to deer hunting or whatever hunting you may do. Guys, I appreciate y'all watching this video. I appreciate all you guys who have hit the like and subscribe button. We have grown tremendously over the last few years. Guys, I hope you guys get a lot of big bucks this year, and I hope you're very successful in scoring something over the 150s, which TV nowadays has watered down the 150s. You know, we see all these big giant racks, and guys, if you truly see a 150 in the woods, dude, my heart races. So guys, I hope you kill you a lot of bucks this year. Thank you for your support, and I'm out.